Hi, and good morning, good Sunday to everyone. I hope you're having a beautiful weekend, or maybe if you live in Israel, beginning of a beautiful week. And the subject today for this live video is failure. It's not a very popular subject. I mean, we all know it exists. We all experience it. We all go through it. But it's something that many times we wish to push away, ignore, and not be there. And I wish to actually promote the idea of failure. Hi, Shiva. I'm going to be answering soon. I'm doing very good. Thanks. I'm happy that you joined. I want to promote the idea, hi, Hattie, of failure because it's a very important factor in our development as human beings and in our also success, both in relationships, in business conduct, in achieving any life goals that we may have, and in maintaining our health and happiness. So what is failure? Let's talk about it. It's a very thin line to understand what failure is because it's a lot in the eye of the beholder. Let's say that I set a goal to perform a certain task and I did what I did and I didn't get the result that I was expecting. Is it a failure or not? Depends how you look at it. If you measure your result just by achieved the exact goal that I set or not, then yes, it's a failure. But maybe you managed to actually achieve something different. Not necessarily good or bad, better or worse, but you just got to a different place. What I'm implying here is that you start to walk on a path towards some kind of goal. We don't really have control over reality. We don't really know where it's going to take us. So it's also very important what we define for ourselves as failure. So that's one point that I think we should all contemplate on. Is this thing that I'm defining as a failure really a failure, or is there another way to look at it? Because I think sometimes we're missing upon great understandings and great achievements by labeling them as I failed. I see myself a lot in that. Hi, Wolfie. Nice to see you, Ulva. I fall into that black hole many times of defining certain achievements or milestones on the path as failures, even though if I take a second look at it, it's actually sometimes an amazing achievement beyond what I thought I could get. It's just not what I had in my mindset. So that's one thing that we can take out of failure. But there is also another thing. Let's say that we actually define something as failure. We thought about it again, and we failed. We couldn't deliver, and we don't see anything good or productive about this failure. Why is it still very important to go through it? Maybe the most cliche and common thing is that to learn from our mistakes and change our conduct. But I want to challenge that because it's not always true. Okay, I'm not saying that there isn't something to learn from failure. Of course there is, but it's not the only thing that we can take from it. Because sometimes we've done everything that we could, and in retrospective, we look back at it. I look back at it and I say to myself, would you change anything? Would you do anything differently? And of course, sometimes the answer is yes, but sometimes the answer is no. I would probably do it exactly the same over again because the way I did it was flawless or close to flawless. But always remember that you don't have control over reality. There are, hi Tina, there are always circumstances which you cannot define. And reacting upon these circumstances, believing that you can change them, I think is a form of arrogance. So actually, one of the important things that I take, hi Hele, nice to see you, from failure is to remember that believing that us setting the goals and intentions and following them can definitely get us everything that we want and need is arrogance. And it's also very important to contemplate and see that we are just human, that we are bound to the same universal laws and planetary circumstances, or whatever you like to call it. And it's a very, very important lesson for our egos that we can't always be successful, that it's okay to fail, that it's also okay to feel belittled or like losing or missing upon important opportunities. And you know what? Life goes on. I think that's maybe one of the most beautiful things that I take out of my personal failures. And believe me, I have plenty. Okay, I have no idea what people think about how I'm living, but on my personal experience, I fail a lot, more than I succeed, actually. On social media, we all look very successful, always delivering our best, our most attractive. But in my personal experience, I'm constantly failing. I'm failing every day. Every day I'm failing in something, and that's good. And it's good because it reminds me that we are just human, and that even if I fail, even if I don't achieve my goals, life goes on. And there will always be the next moment, and tomorrow, and the next month, and the next year to try again, or to try something else. And I think that can develop a certain sense of flexibility in us to accept what is. Flexibility is very important. I come from the field of Chinese medicine as well. And in the Chinese philosophy, we use the metaphor of bamboo a lot to describe its resilience. It's a balance between the strength and the flexibility. If something is too rigid and a strong force comes upon it, it will break. If something is too flexible, of course, it will bend too much and break. But there is a certain balance between setting your goals, going for it, having power, and also accepting that life force and reality force can be very, very strong, stronger than you, and it can bend you. And if you are willing to also nurture that quality of flexibility within you, to accept that you can't always get what you want, that maybe you're going to get it, but not where you want, how you want, when you want, that you don't really know how it works, you can just try. You are much more prone to success, actually. Because many times our mind is very narrow, many times. All the time, our mind is quite narrow or very narrow, and it has defined goals and a defined fantasy about how these goals should be achieved. Willing to step aside, willing to walk around it, you will find many solutions that you didn't even dream about. And maybe you're going to have to take certain projects or relationships off the table. That happens sometimes. Maybe you're going to have to say goodbye to things that you cherish very much or feel very attached to, whether it's people that you are attached to, whether it's projects or fields of interest or whatever it is that you are very, very attached to. Sometimes you have to let it go. Even if it's beautiful, even if it's amazing, even if you think it's the best thing that ever happened to you, sometimes reality will come and clean the table for you. Are you going to stay there? Or are you just going to whip yourself and say, I failed and that's it? It's okay, by the way, to whip yourself, to feel sorry for yourself. It's something that in our society is, again, considered failure. But sometimes we also have to go through that phase and feel bad about ourselves and feel sorry for ourselves for a little while. The question is, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to take it as one of the experiences that are navigating you on your journey, or are you going to hold on to it, stick to it, and stay in that feeling of being the victim of the circumstances? Okay. I think when you start working with that sense of allowing yourself to fail, allowing yourself to be flexible, to accept reality the way it is, to understand, to understand basically how strong life is, much stronger than your personal definition of how things should be. Even feel sorry for yourself. Even see yourself in the situations that you least want to be in, such as being the victim, such as being bitter or sour about stuff, about being that other person that you really don't want to be, but sometimes you find yourself that you are, or being like your parents, or being like whatever, you know. It's also very, very important for the ego experience to know that we are not above anything. And when you are willing to accept that, I know I'm repeating the same kind of concept, but it's very important, and I myself fall into it. When you are willing to accept that, that's a lot. That's so much. It's more than you can imagine, because this is what creates magic. This is one of the most basic principles to alchemy of energy, of state of mind, of material as well. Accept, and things can change. As long as you keep on resisting, as long as you keep on holding, whether it's to your failure or to your success, you are not moving with the pace of reality, of existence, of the universe, and you are missing precious opportunities, which, by the way, is also okay. It's also okay to be stuck sometimes and stubborn and resist. What I'm trying to say here is that there are so many colors to the human experience of this reality. And whenever you are trying to deny even one of them or some of them, you are missing upon something. And believe me, from my personal experience, I can talk about it a lot, but I also like to give myself a little backwind because I'm working quite often with dying people. I mean, on a certain level, philosophically, we're all dying, but I work with people that are actually on the process of releasing from the body, suffering from cancer, suffering from Parkinson, suffering from all kind of difficult disease. And many times we talk about what they regret. And their regrets are almost never not achieving a certain goal, not buying another house, not making enough money, not having a certain set of belongings. What eventually people regret the most are the following: not telling other people how much you love them, not forgiving other people, not forgiving themselves, not loving themselves enough, not understanding that they are allowed to be weak and soft and vulnerable, and that there is amazing chunk of life over there that they missed upon because they were too busy telling themselves that they are good or bad and that the others are good or bad. And all this judgment and labeling has been such a waste of energy, of life force. And these are the things that they regret. So it's not only my personal perspective, it's a lot from the experience that I had with many people that are standing on their deathbed or laying on their deathbed. And when you are in that position, you really get a taste or an understanding of what's important and what's not so important. So do yourself a big, big favor. Allow yourself to fail. Allow yourself to be vulnerable. Allow yourself to fall into all the places that you don't want to fall into. And remember what's really important: to forgive yourself, to forgive the ones that you love, to tell others how much you love them. Tell yourself how much you love you, even though you fail. Just take it. Take it in. Open your heart. Let the mind rest. Or if it wants to talk, let it talk. It's fine. But focus here. Open your heart. Failure is an opportunity, not just to recruit conclusions and act differently in the different situation or in the next time. Failure is an opportunity to forgive yourself, to love yourself, to forgive others, and to love others with unconditional approach. I hope this gave something to some of you that have been watching. Thanks very much for being here. I love to speak from the depth of my heart. I don't know if it always walks in a linear line. I don't always know if it makes sense, but this is what I'm feeling right now, and I feel totally good with it, and I hope you liked it. Have a beautiful, beautiful Sunday.